Oh,
All right, let's get started.
okay. I will read the roll for today's meeting of the Governance Committee meeting of the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. We have with us our committee chair, John Johnson, Al Carney, Joan Sullivan. We also have as board members attending today, Janice McKinney, Jerry Romsky, John Gardner, and Ken Evans. From DASNY staff, we have Ruben McDaniel, Paul Koopman, Nadine Fontaine, Kim Ellis, Portia Lee, Caroline Griffin, Ricardo Salomon, Kathy Ebert, Karen Ellinger, Diane Folletti, and myself, Sarah Richards. If I've missed anyone, please let me know. Otherwise, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
You're just going to have to give me a minute because I've managed to lose my OneNote somewhere. That went off into the bowels of the world's computers.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's not a problem. I got it. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to call the Governance Committee meeting to order. And the first order of business are the minutes from March of 2021, if you can believe it. That was a long time ago. We haven't been governing much. So they've been distributed. Do I hear a motion to accept them as distributed?
I make the motion to accept them as distributed. It's Joan.
I'll second that motion.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Carried. It's all carried. We're going to proceed with the minutes as described. Next is executive compensation, and I'm going to turn that over to Ruben for an explanation. So, Ruben.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Good to see everyone this afternoon at the Governance Committee meeting. As you are aware, when we went into the pandemic, we froze salary increases among many other expenses. As we worked through the pandemic and got a better sense of where not only will we be this year, but also where we will be in the future, some of those things have begun to loosen up, thankfully. We've been able to do some recruiting to replace some retirements that we've had, and we have been able to, again, look at some different increases in the salaries of our employees. We got guidance about 5 or 6 months ago, maybe it's longer than that, that the union employees, we could go ahead and increase and pay their cost of living increases. And so we did that. You may recall that it's been several months now since we did that. However, at the time, we continue to keep all of our MC employees, there are about 80 to 85 employees who fall in that category. We decided to keep them without any increase until we had further clarity, both from the market as well as from the second floor. We received a memo from the Division of Budget a few months ago saying that we could go ahead and increase our MC salaries. We then began to take a look internally, work with Kim Ellis and Jeff Arnold, the finance team, the budget team. We've come up with the following proposal for adjustments to our MC employees. So for the confidential employees, that's the employees who are below the director level, we're going to do a 2% cost of living increase going back to April of 2020. We're also going to do the full payment of the various advances and promotions that would have come along during that period of time by virtue of time passage. And we will give longevity awards for some subset of that group who've been around for a while. That will be $600 per employee who qualifies, which is the same as we do for our union employees. For the second wave of employees, these are the management employees, so above the director level, we will do a 2% cost of living increase, but only back until April of 2021. They will get 1 year of their advance rather than 2, and their longevity awards will also be at the $600 level. And then finally, for the most senior of us employees, we will simply get a 2% cost of living increase back to April of 2021. So while we are increasing salaries, we as senior management have decided not to take the full amount we could have taken just to be fiscally prudent. However, I am concerned about too much salary compression if we continue to increase employees below management and don't take care of those who are above management. So I think this is a good compromise of those issues. In doing that, we need board approval, of course, to both adjust the budget. And from this committee, we need approval to give these raises to our management confidential employees. Any questions about those numbers?
None here, Mr. President.
I follow up that with we're hearing no questions. May I have a motion to accept this recommendation that will advance at the full board meeting tomorrow?
This is Joan. I just have a question. Maybe this is for you, Sarah. The resolution seems fairly vague. Is it not unusual that should we not attach Ruben's email to it? Or was it intentionally vague?
Yeah, typically we don't put all of the details in the resolution itself.
Okay.
The memo does go, to the members in advance for the additional information, but the resolution itself simply states, the budget increase, and it's not uncommon for it not to contain all of the details about the reasons for the raises and the nitty-gritty.
And I suppose Ruben's email is part of the record, so they go
Right.
hand in hand. Okay, I'm good.
Sarah, thank you for the explanation.
Yes,
Tal.
thank you.
Any other comments? All right, so we've got a motion to move this resolution on to the full board tomorrow. Do I hear any opposition to that? Hearing none, it's approved unanimously, and we'll move to the full board tomorrow.
And I'm sorry, who seconded that, Mr. Chair? I know.
I did.
Okay,
Al did.
thank you.
Okay, now we'll resume with the rest of the agenda items, and I'm going to rely on Sarah to fill us in on these, and because there's not a lot here that requires anything other than an annual review. So Sarah, you're on.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you may recall, starting last year, the decision was made to break the annual review of certain corporate governance items into 2 meetings to give the board more time to consider all these items and to avoid a real backlog in March, having them all come due at once at that time. So today, before the committee for review are 4 items: the annual review of the corporate governance charter and governance principles. Secondly, the mission statement and performance measures, which include the metrics to quantify performance goals and measurement. And 3, the guidelines pertaining to the disposition of certain property. Those are the items that we'll be considering today. The rest will be next spring. So the first item for the committee's review are the corporate governance charter and the governance principles. Subject to any comments from the committee or board members present, staff has reviewed these documents and is not recommending any changes to them at this time. The full board does not need to act on these 2 items. All that is required is committee review by this corporate governance committee. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, to determine if the committee members have any comments or changes or questions of those documents at this time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any further questions for Sarah about changes they see that should be part of the charter and the principles?
None here, Mr. Chairman.
None here.
All right, hearing none, then we'll proceed. Since we don't have to take an action, we'll proceed to the next with Sarah. Thank you.
Very good. So the next item on the agenda is the mission statement and performance measures, including metrics to quantify performance goals and measurements. And after review and consideration by staff, there were several minor changes that are recommended to the metrics. A black line copy was included in the board materials for the committee members' review. Essentially, the reason for these changes to the metrics was just to update them to reflect current law and practice in a couple of different areas. Some of the terms that were in there before are now outdated, so we simply streamlined and brought current the language of those metrics. So if the committee agrees with those changes, the committee will need to recommend approval for the full DASNY board tomorrow, and a draft resolution was also included in the board materials. And with that, back to you, Mr. Chair.
Do I hear does everybody understand that these have had a chance to review these changes and which are, really mostly word changes rather than substance changes?
I have a question.
Yeah.
And this is more edification for my knowledge. Does New York have a disabled veterans program with goals? We have, because on the goals, it's the MWBE program. I just wondered if we had a disabled vet also.
Joan, it's Al, you're talking about goal 3.
I'm
The
sorry,
meet or
yeah.
exceed the MWBE utilization goal.
Yes, sorry.
Okay,
Do have contract goals associated, but I do not believe they were issued through executive order. Therefore, I don't believe we've included them in the same light as we would the MWBE goals, but I can get confirmation on that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, but Joe,
Yeah.
just for edification purposes, our SDVO goals are 6% of contract value.
I'm sorry, Ruben, 6%?
6, yes,
Okay, cool,
6.0.
cool.
So even though it's not executive order, is that something we would want to include as a goal? I guess I throw that out to anybody.
Joan, I think it's something to be
Yeah.
considered. It's Al. It's certainly something to be considered, but if we, obviously the goals did not include them specifically. And if we can get staff to take a good hard look at that, and there is a recommendation that we include the veterans MWBE utilization goals at some point in the future, I'd be comfortable with that. But that it may be, is that okay with you? Does that work for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Great, we'll do that.
Okay, anything else? Then because of these changes, we need to advance a resolution to the board tomorrow. So do I hear a motion to, do I hear a motion, somebody to make this motion of the for the resolution?
So moved, sir. So moved.
All right.
Second.
Second, thank you. Anybody opposed to this? Hearing not, it's accepted unanimously. So now we've got to go here to the disposition of property, and Sarah, will you explain where we are on that?
Okay, this is the last item that is before the committee today. It's the annual review of guidelines pertaining to the disposition of certain property. And subject to any comments from the committee or board members present today, the staff has reviewed these documents and is not recommending any changes to them at this time. Again, if the committee agrees, the committee will need to recommend that the full board approve them at tomorrow's full board meeting, and a draft resolution was included in the board materials for review. Mr. Chair.
Anybody have any questions or observations about the lack of changes in this?
None here, sir.
All right, then may I have a resolution to recommend approval to the board tomorrow?
I make a motion.
Okay, thank you,
Second.
Joan. Al, thank you. Anybody opposed? Speak up. If not, it's unanimously approved, and we'll move it on to the board tomorrow. I believe that covers our agenda for today.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
at the risk of adding something that you probably weren't thinking about, I will do it. One of the items that the Governors Committee was considering, or we were considering as the staff of the Governors Committee for this meeting, was around our form of meeting that would be allowed, I guess it's section 3.7, correct, Sarah?
That's the correct section, yes.
And we talked about this, we've done a little bit of work on it, but given the governor's new executive order that expires January 15th, we decided to wait until the March meeting to take that item up, and we'll just see how things play out after that date expires. I'm sure we'll get some guidance on open meetings law and Zoom meetings and those types of things between now and then. So we thought it prudent to pull that from this agenda and save it for the March meeting.
It makes sense to me, because why come up with a policy that's only going to be changed by an executive order
Exactly.
or another law? So I think we just steam ahead and do what we're doing and see what happens.
I agree.
It's one-
But
everybody-
Ruben, thank you very much for reminding us of the fact that this was on the table. Let's take it off for the moment, see what happens. Fingers crossed. Let's hope we can all sit in the same room and enjoy being together sometime in March.
So can I just go back? I just want to state for the record, because I did quickly look back because I couldn't remember that the SDVOB goals were established by executive law back in 2014, it looks like. So we will again revisit Joan's comment and see what we could do. And so I misstated by saying they were not executive order, but it looks like they're established pursuant to executive law.
Thanks, Paul.
I just want the record to reflect that.
Sure. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, is there anything else to come before the meeting? Hearing none, I guess we will adjourn and we'll all meet up again tomorrow morning at 9:30, correct?
Correct, 9:30 tomorrow.
All right, well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Everybody have
Thank
a
you.
great night. See you in the morning at 9:30.
Thanks.
See you in the morning. Appreciate
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
now.
Bye.
Bye.